Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head a little bit north once again in this review to Värmland County, and we're going to revisit a brewery that I have been quite impressed with over the last couple of months. This is going to be review number 3 from these guys, and this one is a little bit different compared to the other beers that I've had from them already. So for this one then we are going to go to Karlstad, and we're having a look at my third beer from Hands Brewing. So this one is called the Mana. It comes in at 7.5% ABV, and it's another New England hazy style IPA, but this one has New Zealand hops in it, Nelson Sauvin and Rackau. If you've watched the channel before, you will know that I'm a huge fan of New Zealand hops. That goes back to when I actually visited New Zealand back in 2015, and I really want to go back and see how the beer scene's evolved. But the other beers that I've had from these guys before, it was the, what was it? It was the Dragonfly was the first one. And then I had the double dry hopped geothermal, and both of these were really quite impressive New England IPAs. And this is where this brewery really has made its name. They seem to be sticking at the moment to the New England hazy IPAs, and they've been getting a lot of hype. And I mean, you know, partly that will be due to the fact that the New England IPAs are so popular these days, but I have to say within that category these guys are doing some very, very nice things in my opinion. So I really would recommend that if you can get a hold of these beers that you do check them out. They are, as I say, pretty damn good in the style. If you like Apex Brewing Company, Stigbergets, OO, who else have we got? You know, if you like these kind of breweries, basically, if you like the New England hazy style beers, Spike Brewery as well from Gothenburg, you are really going to enjoy the stuff that Hands are putting out at the moment. But yeah, really curious to see what a New Zealand hop New England IPA from these guys is like, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. This is going to be one of 2 beers that you see reviewed this month. It was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget for September of 2020, along with the Violetta, I guess you would say in Swedish, and you will see that one reviewed a little bit later on. Keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hands Brewing before, and you will definitely see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Hands Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before and already in this video, Hands Brewing are based in Karlstad, which you'll find on the banks of Vänern, one of the Great Lakes of Sweden, in Värmland County, which is kind of to the northeast of Gothenburg actually, Göteborg. But the company was founded by a group of 5 friends. So the 5 guys behind this company are Robert Hedl, Johan Eklund, Fredrik Steen, Göran Larsson and Jan Karlsson, and they each own 20% of the company, 1/5. And the company itself was founded back in November of 2018. All of them have a little bit of brewing experience, but it's Johan Eklund who is the main brewer. They released their first beers in March of 2019. The very first one that they did was an IPA called Firstborn. I would love to review that actually. I don't think that has been through Systembolaget yet, but that would actually be quite interesting to try, the very first beer that they did. But that year in 2019 they produced around 20,000 litres, and I think they were only kind of distributing very locally to restaurants and bars and things like that at that time. But they started releasing their beers through Systembolaget in 2020. I think it would have been July 2020 that their first beer came out, the Dragonfly, and there was another one that they released at the same time, but the Dragonfly was the one that caught my eye. But as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 25 different beers. Pretty much all of them, I think, I think all of them actually are New England hazy style IPAs. As I said to you at the start of the video, this is the style that the brewery has stuck to so far. I do hope that they do some West Coast and some black IPAs and maybe some stouts and stuff like that later. That would be interesting, but for the moment they are sticking to the New England hazy style IPAs, but they're doing it very well, I have to say, and these guys are getting a lot of attention, one because that style is very popular just now, and two, and mainly because the beers that they're doing are pretty impressive actually. So yeah, as I said earlier, if you can get a hold of some of these beers, I highly recommend that you do. The other thing to note about this company is the name, 10 Hands Brewing. It's obviously coming from the fact that there's 5 owners involved in the brewery, but yeah. I've enjoyed the beers I've had from them so far, and if you do get the chance, have a go at them for yourself and just see what you think. I'm not sure if the beers that they've released so far are considered regulars in Systembolaget. I'm not sure if they have a beer in the fixed range, if you like, but I'm assuming that if you go to the local shops in Karlstad, you will be able to get a hold of these ones fairly easily. That tends to be the case over the country, of course. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about 10 Hands Brewing for the moment. Very, very new company, of course, but I'm sure this is one that will kind of grow and thrive over the next little while. So yeah, I look forward to trying more beers from them in the future. You will see the Violetta reviewed later this month, and I think they probably have got other ones planned for later in the year, but I would like to try the Firstborn actually, and I would love to see a few black IPAs and West Coast IPAs and maybe some stouts and stuff from these guys, as I said earlier. But yeah, if you want to learn more about the brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate page to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this one then. So yeah, like I said to you, this was one of 2 beers that was released as part of the September Lokalis Moskalikt assortment in Systembolaget here in Sweden. This one was released along with the Violetta. It comes in at 7.5% hazy New England IPA, and you can see the artwork on this one is pretty damn impressive once again. There you can see on the side of the can, there is the 10 Hands Brewing Company symbol. As I've said in the other videos, it really reminds me of Yivo from The Beast with a Billion Backs, the Futurama movie. But yeah, this one, as I say, should be very interesting. It comes in at 7.5% and it's hopped with Nelson Sauvin, which we know for the big lovely white, green, grapey flavours and aromas, but it can have a hell of a spicy kick to it actually. And there's also Rakau in there, which is a hop that I discovered back in back over in New Zealand. It's got a lovely tropically fruit note to it. I remember it being quite sort of light and it had a little bit. I remember it having a little bit of a passion fruity note to it, but also having a bit of a kind of you know, pineapple-y, apricot-y sort of thing. So yeah, it'd be really cool to revisit Rakau in this one. It almost looks like a kind of exploding ink pot, this one, but yeah, there you can see the little bit of artwork for the name, Mana. So yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. It should be really quite nice. But yeah, 7.5% New England IPA, this one, and hopefully it turns out to be like the other ones, but this is my first New Zealand hopped one that they've done. So yeah, there we are. I can't remember what I paid for this beer. I think I paid somewhere in the region of 40 crowns. That tends to be what I pay for most of the 10 Hands ones. But yeah, they're using these little 330ml cans, the sort of Red Bully sized ones that Brewski are using up in Helsingborg as well. But yeah, as you can see with this one, this is poured. This is actually quite a pale looking New England IPA. I would say this one's kind of along the lines of a pineapple juice in terms of its colour. I always compare the New England IPAs to the different fruit juices because they really do just look like that. You can see that when we poured the beer we had about a quarter finger of quite a bumpy white head. Actually it's faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty nice actually. I love how this one looks. I think the paler ones, I've always had a good experience with the very pale looking New England IPAs. But yeah, if I put my fingers behind the glass in this one, you can see there is a good degree of haze to this. If we put the light through it, it does have an impressive level, and for 7.5%, I'd say yeah, it's fairly solid in its haziness. As I've told you before, as you go up the alcohol scale with these beers, you get more haziness out of them because of the, you know, the higher content of oats and wheat and things like that. But yeah, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest one I've come across actually. I'd probably reserve that accolade, if you like, for some of the ones I've had from Chicago actually. They're always impressively hazy in Chicago. But yeah, this one looks pretty nice, and as I say, one of the paler New England IPAs that I've come across recently. But let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Oh yeah, this one does smell a bit different. As I've told you on various other videos, the New England, these New England IPAs, they always give you a lovely bit of creaminess, but the New Zealand hops, I think, they give you a really just interesting contrast, because I've always found the New Zealand hops very, very juicy, but also slightly oily in their fruity characters. And this beer, I think because of that, because of the slightly softer but juicy fruity notes, I think this beer smells a little bit more wheaty than the other ones that I've had from 10 Hands before. Yeah, this one to me does have the wheat has quite a bit of pungency in this one, I think. So you get that wheaty note comes out really quite strongly at the back of the nose. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, you get some IPAs that really lean towards the oaty side of things. You get some that are a bit more wheaty. Trillium are more wheaty. Treehouse are more creamy and oaty. So yeah, this one comes across as a little bit more like a kind of Trillium type IPA. But yeah, definitely more wheaty and pungent. It's got a nice bit of a wheaty kind of bitiness to it, if you like. But I really like how it kind of balances itself. You do get a nice little bit of a sort of you do get a really nice bit of a kind of, there is a little bit of that Werther's Originally kind of brown sugar coming out of this one. You also get a good level of creaminess from the oats as well, which I really like. So the malt base in this one I find definitely leaning towards the wheaty side of things, but it does have the kind of components that you would expect of this beer style in 2020. The more I smell of it, the more oaty it gets, and you do get more and more of the brown sugars as well, so it's almost like your nose kind of saturates a little bit to the wheatiness. But I would say that overall the malty side of the aroma really leans towards that more kind of bitey, wheaty side of things. But yeah, I like how that goes together. I do like a bit of, I like there to be contrast between the beers I'm trying, and this one definitely comes across a bit differently. But you will notice if you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, it's more of the oats and the sort of brown sugary, that sort of Werther's Originally biscuity type sweetness that you get out of this one. So yeah, interesting points to make about that. But on the hoppy side of things, let's have a little focus on that now. There's a tiny bit of earthiness out of this one, not overly much. The green side of the hops, if you take it in, I actually find this one, there is a bit of floral aromaticity on the sides of the nose, but I really find this one to be more grassy rather than anything else. I really like the big grassiness that this beer has. Yeah, I really do find this one to be quite, I really find this one just to be, big and grassy on the green side of the hops. So that's going to be interesting as well. It's, as I say, quite wheaty, but also quite grassy at the same time. So there's quite a bit of contrast in the aroma here. But yeah, the hops are coming out lovely in this one. I mean, the Nelson Sauvin hop, it can usually have about 16% alpha acid. It's a bit of a beast, and it's got a hell of a spicy character to it as well if it's used as an early addition hop. A lot of people associate it with the, the white, green, grapey, and almost slightly gooseberry type flavours, really quite soft flavours. But as I say, if you add it in the first, in the earlier part of your boil, it's going to give you those big spicy notes that it also kind of hides away a bit. But Racal, that's got a lovely bit of tropical fruit complexity to it. As I say, I remember it being quite apricot-y and pineapple-y in a lot of ways, but also having a bit of passion fruit to it. So yeah, the thing is, both of these hops come out quite nicely in this one. So for me, I think the Nelson Sauvin, the kind of green-white grapes, that's kind of coming out, it almost smells like it's forming the backbone, and it does come out a little bit more on the front of the nose. But at the same time, you can smell a bit of a, there is a wee bit of a kind of smoother passion fruity note there, but I do get quite a bit of an apricot-y, pineapple-y type note out of this one as well. I don't know if pineapple is maybe necessarily the right descriptor. Apricot definitely comes out of this one, 100% on the apricot, but it could be a bit papaya as well. I don't know. It's a bit difficult to pick out, but yeah, the Nelson Sauvin is really distinctive. It helps the beer just kind of round out a little bit. It almost kind of blends in with the kind of grassy the grassy aromas a little bit. But yeah, it's got the tropical fruity notes that you get out of this are lovely and soft, and that kind of suits the rest of the beer actually. I mean, I think, yeah, papaya and apricot. This one, the pineapple, the more I smell it, the more I'm kind of doubting what I said with the pineapple notes, but there's definitely a wee touch of a passion fruity note coming out of it as well. But yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it, because it is quite an interesting one. You don't find too many solely New Zealand hopped IPAs here in Sweden. If you are interested in New Zealand hops, incidentally, I do recommend that you check out some beers from Northern Exposure Brewing Company. Dolphin Love is a lovely beer actually, a really nicely done New England IPA. But yeah, with this month we also had the 50/50, which was the 50/50 instalment from OO Brewing. That was Motueka and Nelson Sauvin. So that we had another New England, New Zealand New England hopped IPA this month. So bit of a treat actually. As I say, I love the New Zealand hops. But yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy this one. This is quite an interesting aroma for me actually. I really like how this goes together. I like the ones that taste the nose a little bit, and it certainly does that. But yeah, let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. This one is the Mana 7.5% New England IPA from 10 Hands Brewing in Karlstad in Värmland. Let's get stuck in. Slange skål. Oh yeah, that's quite nicely done. It feels a little bit boozy, this one, almost. But yeah, I suppose it's 7.5%. You're kind of treading that line, if you like, between the double IPAs and the regular IPAs. You know, it's one of these kind of grey areas, if you like. When does the single end and the double begin? So yeah, 7.5%. I would say yeah, 8% for. You know, 7.5 or 8% is probably your borderline for these beers. But yeah. But yeah, first impression of this one is it does have a wee bit of bitiness to it, but it's kind of the wheat is quite pungent in this one, and you'll feel the pungency of that wheat building as you go further into the aftertaste. But you get a nice balance from the oats. The oats are giving this one quite a bit of character as well. So yeah, I think in the aroma definitely more wheaty, but not quite as wheaty as the aroma would have you believe. But it does come across really nicely actually. So it gets there's another thumbs up to 10 Hands for me. Like I say, these guys are doing some really nice beers at the moment. So I'm not sure if they are available outside of Sweden yet. I mean, these guys are still pretty small, to be honest, but you know, they probably are going to scale up quite quickly, I think. I think their beers have proved to be pretty popular. So yeah. But yeah, let's try and break this one down then. I mean, straight away with this beer, across the middle of the palate you get a nice bit of that kind of white bready note, but I feel that the breadiness that you get with this is really quite smooth actually. That takes over the middle third of your tongue and the back third of your tongue. If you go onto the back third of your tongue, you do get a nice little bit of that. You can feel the wheatiness sort of thickening out a little bit. The wheat really does give you a bigger, really does give you a bit of a bitiness in this beer as well, and you can feel that evolving the further you go into the aftertaste actually. So I like how that. I really like how that goes together. So yeah, I do like the beers to be balanced with the oats and the wheat, and the 10 Hands, I think, with this one at least, does it really nicely. But yeah, you can feel the sort of bitiness of the wheat. There's a little touch of spice to it almost on that back third of the palate, but as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel there is a wee bit of that, of a lighter white bready note underneath, but then as you move towards that front half of the middle third of your tongue, you definitely pick out that slightly kind of bigger oaty kind of creaminess there. You do get there's almost a wee tiny touch of a slightly bubblegummy, candied flavour coming out of that. But on the back half of that that kind of middle third of your palate there, you do get a wee bit of that kind of Werther's originally brown sugar. But yeah, it's interesting, this one. I do find it has a little bit of that kind of bubblegummy, kind of candied flavour that you sometimes get in Hefeweizens. It does have a wee bit of that to it, this one. I've always wondered that, to be honest, with some of these New England IPA yeasts. I always wonder, are these basically souped up Hefeweizen yeasts? And of course the New England IPAs were, you know, if you go to the likes of Alchemist and the breweries where this started, Alchemist's ones, they're really farmhousey almost. It's a farmhouse. The original New England IPAs are very sort of farmhousey and yeasty and woody and things like this. And I do wonder when I try some of the more modern ones, if you like, some of the ones that have been released more recently, you do get quite a bit of Hefeweizen character out of them, like a really, you know, almost like an imperial Hefeweizen, if you like. You really get some of that vibe out of this beer, just from the way the wheat, just from the kind of pungency of the wheat and things. So yeah, I like it. So yeah, malty side of this beer is really nice. It really smooths out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, on that back half of the middle third of your tongue, you do get a bit, there is a wee bit of the Werther's originally kind of thing, but underneath you've got that sort of candied, slightly bubblegummy type note. I don't really get much biscuit out of this one. It is more of that kind of Werther's originally. Sort of the kind of oily brown sugary note you get out of this beer, and that's really interesting. On the hoppy side of things then, let's focus on that now. Back corners of the palate, there is a good little bit of earthiness comes out of this one, but as you move further along the side of the palate you can feel it does develop to be quite nice and floral. It's not overly spicy, this one. You do get a little bit of that, so I do suspect there will be a little touch of I think there might well be a little touch of the Nelson Sauvin used in the early editions, in the early edition hops with this one, because it does have a wee touch of spiciness to it, but not overly much. But the New England IPAs, they're not as hopped as the West Coasters were, in fairness. But and they may well be using a bittering hop in this one as well. I suspect usually, well, I don't know about usually, but quite often a lot of the breweries, they will list the late edition hops, and I do wonder if that's what they're doing here. They've maybe used something else as the bittering hop in this one, and then those other ones are added later in the boil. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of a floral aromatic note on the sides of the palate, not too spicy, as I say. That's what makes me question what I said about the Nelson Sauvin, but as you go round the very front curve of the palate, distinctly more light and grassy in its flavour composition. But yeah, on the front third of your tongue then, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll out of the beer. And yeah, this is interesting, this one, because you can feel as you reach that border between the kind of middle third of your palate and the front third of your palate, there is a good little bit of a kind of, you do get a bit of that kind of strong, oaty, wheaty kind of thing. You can feel that just almost building a wall there. But yeah, in front of that you do get a wee bit of passion fruit, which will be from the Racal. And as you move further forward, you can feel those softer, kind of tropical fruits coming out of this one. I do think it is quite apricotty in a lot of ways. It's almost got a wee bit of a peachy kind of sharpness to it as well, which is interesting. I don't remember Racal having a kind of peachy note to it, but I definitely get papaya and apricot out of this one. But there is just something a little bit stronger to it as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, as you reach the kind of front part of the palate, I think it really starts to lean more towards the Nelson Sauvin. The Nelson Sauvin, those kind of green grapey, white grapey type flavours, it does kind of sit underneath those tropical fruits that I've just described a little bit, but I think on the front part of the palate, on the very kind of front tip of your tongue almost, that's where it really starts to come out. And as you reach the very front edge of the tongue, I think there's a wee bit of a kind of citrusy, zesty kind of quality coming out of the beer as well. So I mean, I do like how this goes together. This is an interesting one because it really has tasted my palate in some ways, just figuring out how to describe all of these kind of flavours to you. It's giving me a bit of, I think that's the wheat. I always find that the wheaty IPAs, they give me a little bit more gas, if you like. But yeah, the wheatiness of this one, I think it's a really wheaty leaning New England one, this for me. And it does feel a little bit boozy for a 7.5%, and I have to say that about it as well. But I think the fruitiness that this one has is quite interesting. So yes, as a New Zealand hopped New England IPA at 7.5%, I find this a little bit more boozy than other ones I've had around this this percentage, but I think it works, again, it works very, very nicely. I mean, if you enjoy the stuff, you know, from Stigbergets, we had the Miesler recently, it reminds me a little bit of that. You know, these guys are on par with Apex, with OO, with Stigbergets, you know, the other breweries. You know, Spike Brewery are doing some really nice things in the IPA as well. You've got Dugis as well, who have some really good New Englands. You know, these guys definitely don't look out of place in what is becoming a kind of crowded niche of the brewing market, if you like. These guys will do pretty well, I think, going forward, but I do hope they try some different styles. But definitely one of the more wheaty leaning New Englands that I've come across recently. And the New Zealand fruits, I think, the New Zealand fruits on this one are quite interesting. So I would say this is one of the, in the fruity side of things, I would say this is a bit softer than some of the other New Englands that I've had as well. So yeah, that, I hope that kind of makes sense. I feel I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah. But yeah, mouthfeel. This one is actually, for 7.5%, this is, the sort of thickness of this beer is quite impressive. So I would describe this one, this is either top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It's got a really nice kind of thickness to it. Carbonation is very smooth. It's got a good bit of oily character to it as well, and that, I don't know if I'd necessarily describe this one as creamy. It feels a little bit more creamy the further you go into the aftertaste. You do get more and more of the oats out of this beer as you go further into the aftertaste. So I wouldn't describe it as slick, no. But yeah, nice kind of. It's mainly quite thick, but it has a little degree of oiliness to it as well. And on the bitterness side of things, what would we say about that? This isn't too high in terms of its bitterness. This one, I think this is maybe 30-ish. I think it's this kind of standard 30, maybe 40 at a push. It does have a wee bit of a kind of floral kind of thing lingering there into the aftertaste, but yeah, maybe 40 at a push. It's nice. It is nice how that goes together. Yeah, but maybe 30 or 40 IBUs. But yeah, lovely big kind of, yeah, lovely big sort of just malty smoothness. This one, as I say, the malt base does have a bit of wheaty bitiness to it, but it smooths out the further you go into the aftertaste. Then you get more of the oats. You get a nice little bit of fruity juiciness out of this one as well. It starts, I do get more citrus off the front edge of the tongue, a bit more of a zesty quality on the front tip of the palate, if you like. But then the further that you go into the aftertaste, it's more, you get more and more of the Nelson Sauvin, I think, coming out, and the softer tropical fruits kind of stay there. I think that the Nelson Sauvin starts to dominate as you go further into the aftertaste, but then it kind of will do, because I think it's almost twice as high in alpha acid as the Rackau is, but the Rackau really adds some nice soft tropical notes to it. Apricot, you do get some of that apricot and sort of papaya type flavour in the aftertaste too. But yeah, it's another really, really solid beer from 10 Hands Brewing. I do think, to be honest with you, I think they should make a bit of a bigger deal with this one. In terms of their marketing, I would sort of make a bit of a bigger deal about this one being a New Zealand hopped New England IPA, because, you know, when you're doing so many New England IPAs, you want them to be distinctive a little bit. I mean, I've had the other one that I had, the original one, the Dragonfly, was American hopped. Then the other one that I had was the double dry hop double IPA, and the geothermal, and now this one's the New Zealand one. Their beers all do have these different names, but I think, you know, for they should say something on the side. Like, I don't think they do. It just says, you know, it doesn't say anything about this being a New Zealand hopped New England IPA. I would make a bit more of a deal of that on the cans, to be honest with you. Just something that I would go for. But yeah, I like how this comes together. More of a wheaty leaning New England IPA. So if you're a fan of the likes of Trillium and stuff, you will kind of enjoy this one, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. Another interesting beer from 10 Hands Brewing, New Zealand top New England IPA, this one, and I think it turns out really quite nicely. Definitely different from the other beers that I've had so far, and I think this is one of the things that this brewery is going to show, that you do get a lot of nuances and you can play around with the New England recipe and make them quite diverse. So yeah, you will get quite a few different vibes from a number of the 10 Hands Brewing beers. So yeah, let's leave it at that. This one was the Mana 7.5% New England IPA, New Zealand top New England IPA from 10 Hands Brewing in Karlstad in Värmland. kind of to the northeast of Gothenburg in Sweden. So yeah, awesome beer this one, really liked it. I like the New Zealand hops, as I say, and this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out if you're interested in Swedish and Scandinavian beer or New England IPAs. But yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from 10 Hands Brewing as well. We will return to these guys later this month, and beyond that we'll probably have more beers from them as well. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Check out this brewery, and I will catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out 10 Hands Brewing from Karlstad in Värmland. Skål.